If you were to sit down with the most successful people ever and ask them, what led to your success? Most of them would say one thing: failure. Yes, failure. Because failure builds something inside you that every entrepreneur needs to succeed. A thick skin and the resilience to keep moving forward despite every obstacle that gets in your way. And it can also be just the catalyst you need to take the greatest leap forward in your business and in your life. I know it was for me. I'm Marisa Murgatroyd, and sometimes I still can't believe I've achieved the success I have, especially after my father told me that I had no marketable skills and that he wasted $150,000 on my college education. Well, I proved him wrong. I have a calling in this life that wasn't part of my dad's plan for me. That calling? To empower people who have a gift and a dream to launch and grow their business so they can have the impact and income they desire. And over the last 12 years, I've been able to inspire over 12,000 students to take over 500,000 hours of life-changing action. But it hasn't been easy, and I've definitely failed all along the way. So have the most successful entrepreneurs of all time. The path of failure keeps good company. So that's why I really want to share 12 historic failure stories that prove once and for all, you always pass failure on your way to success. Michael Jordan is widely considered the greatest basketball player of all time, the uber GOAT, if you will. But he was cut from his high school varsity team as a sophomore. Even though he felt devastated, even a little humiliated, this experience motivated him to commit to improving his skills for reals. He spent hours practicing every day. He worked on his shooting, his ball handling, his footwork, and his overall conditioning. 1 year later, he got a spot back on the high school team. And he still kept up this daily training schedule, which went beyond anything the other players were doing because he believed that in the end, it would pay off. And it did. Jordan went on to become a dominant force in college basketball and later the NBA, winning 6 championships, 5 MVPs, and numerous records. He even became the name and face behind the most popular shoes on the planet, Air Jordans, and went on to become the majority owner of the Charlotte Hornets. Not bad for someone who got cut from his high school basketball team, am I right? Did you know that Oprah was fired from her job reporting the evening news because she was too emotionally invested in the story she reported on? But this flaw actually led to huge success on the other side. By wearing her emotions on her sleeve, the Oprah Winfrey Show became a smash hit. I mean, the biggest hit pretty much ever. She did something that no one else was doing in the crowded daytime TV landscape. And since then, she's built her own successful network and is now worth $2.5 billion. Then, there's Thomas Edison, who was told by his teachers that he was too stupid to learn anything. Edison went on to hold more than 1,000 patents and is now known as one of the most successful inventors who ever lived. His creations have changed the lives of every single person on this planet. Sarah Blakely started off as a door-to-door fax machine saleswoman who had a clever idea and a mere $5,000 in her pocket. She had no business degree, no fashion experience, and no industry contacts. So for a whole year, Sarah was told no by every single manufacturer she approached, and I mean every manufacturer. But she kept asking and kept getting rejected over and over again before finally hearing that yes. Today, she's the billionaire founder of Spanx. Soichiro Honda started by manufacturing piston rings in the 1930s. He went to Toyota and they basically told him, your products aren't really up to snuff for us. But rather than giving up, Honda went back to school to better understand the engineering behind piston manufacturing. After 2 years, he came back to Toyota and they approved his design. That was just the beginning. He then took advantage of a timely opportunity to build his own auto empire. After World War II, there was a gasoline shortage in Japan. Seeing an opportunity where others only saw crisis, Honda attached a small engine to his bicycle, creating a basic, fuel-efficient mode of transportation. It was a hit. Then in 1948, using the surplus of engines left over from the war, he founded Honda Motor Company. The company's first motorcycle was named the Dream. By 1964, Honda had become the largest manufacturer of motorcycles in the world. And as they say, the rest is history. After Arianna Huffington finished her second book, she received rejection notices from nearly 40 publishers. When she ran for governor of California, she received less than 1% of the popular vote. However, she did learn something from her failed political campaign. Running for office taught her about the power of the internet. She used this new knowledge to launch her website, The Huffington Post, and has since founded another company and published 15 books. Now, did you know that before he built The Happiest Place on Earth, Walt Disney was fired from one of his first animation jobs at a Missouri newspaper for not being creative enough? Yup, the Imagineer behind Mickey, Donald, Goofy, and countless characters who have stood the test of time was fired for not being creative enough. Fortunately for children and adults and imagination everywhere, he didn't let that deter him. And now billions of people around the world enjoy his movies and rides. Despite what you think about Elon Musk and what he's done with Twitter, now X, he's undeniably a visionary and one of the richest people in the freaking world. And of everybody on my fail list, he's probably faced the most struggles and setbacks along the way. So to keep his first company alive, Zip2, he slept in his office and showered at the local YMCA. Now, Zip2 still failed. Then, despite the success of his company PayPal, he was fired as a CEO while on vacation. Now, how about SpaceX? Explosion after explosion after explosion during the testing process would have deterred almost anybody else. But Elon, he saw these failures as positives that led to important discoveries and significant progress in refining his space shuttle design. And in April 2023, the SpaceX Starship Orbital test flight became the most powerful rocket to ever launch. So, what's the secret to Elon's enduring success? He's what I like to call the scientist in the experiment lab of his business, which is actually the key to success in your own business. Experimenting and failing, and experimenting and failing, and iterating until you get it right. So if you're ready to become the scientist in the experiment lab of your business, check out my low-cost step-by-step program, Live Your Message Lab. Each month, we focus in on a single experiment that'll act as a catalyst for your business growth. Plus, you'll get the coaching and support that you need to make it a reality. So head on over to liveyourmessage.com/lab or click the link in the description to learn more. As an entrepreneur, you have to create your own opportunities. Look no further than Vera Wang for inspiration. When Vera failed to qualify for the Olympics, she gave up her figure skating career and she turned to her next passion, fashion. In 1971, she took an assistant position at Vogue and became a fashion editor within a year. When Wang was denied the editor-in-chief position, she started her own fashion line. Today, she's an iconic designer best known for her stunning wedding dresses and is worth, get this, $650 million. If you Google or do a ChatGPT query for successful entrepreneurs who failed before success, two names will often pop up first: Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. Like many successful entrepreneurs, Gates was a college dropout. After dropping out of Harvard, he co-founded a business called Traf-O-Data, which aimed to analyze traffic data. You may have guessed from the absolutely awful name, it failed miserably. But Gates wasn't to be stopped. He turned his skill and passion for computer programming and the lessons he learned from this failure into the world-renowned software company Microsoft, making him the world's youngest self-made billionaire at just 31. He's now worth nearly $115 billion. And the best part? He's committed to donating half of his wealth over his lifetime. That's right, your failure doesn't just benefit you, it can benefit everyone. #FailForward. Do you remember the Apple Lisa or the Apple III? If not, you're not alone. Unfortunately for Steve Jobs, these were products that crashed and burned. And it got even worse from there. Due to costly production designs and internal turmoil, especially with the CEO at the time, John Sculley, Jobs was ousted from Apple, the company he co-founded. Fortunately for him and all the Apple fans out there, Jobs eventually found his way back to the company in 1997 to take the helm during a period of expansive growth and innovation that continues to this day. He was simply too passionate and too much of a visionary to fail. So there you have it, 11 of the most successful entrepreneurs ever who used failure to fuel their success. And if you're wondering, Marisa, what about the 12th entrepreneur? Well, I thought I'd share my story. Because even though I'm not a billionaire like most of the people on this list, I've achieved more success than I could have ever dreamt of as a young girl who was discouraged from following my passions. You see, my dad had a plan for me from the day I was born. He's a macroeconomic advisor who raised me as if I were my own economy. He had this equation in his head. If you put this, and this into there, you'd end up with a happy and successful daughter. So the day I was born, he started mutual funds for my college education, and he trained me to become a productive member of society. But there was one massive problem with this plan. It forgot one very important thing. It forgot me. It forgot who I was in my unique gifts for the world, not to mention what I actually wanted from this one wild and precious life. So I realized I had to forge my own path in this life. And throughout this journey, I faced buku setbacks and buku failures, but one stands out in particular. It was August 2010, the day I walked in the doors of my very last job. I didn't walk in with the excitement of something new. I walked in with my head down, my shoulders slumped, in defeat. 5 months earlier, I had left my previous job with the intention to start my own business, but I just couldn't make it work. I'd been following the standard advice to do something practical, do something that would make money. So I offered web design, but I still couldn't sell it. I get maybe one client every 2 to 3 months that would bring in $3,000 to $7,000, but I instantly spent all of that just to deliver my services and keep the business open. Worse still, I had to chase clients who tried to nickel and dime me over every piece of their website, every button, every word on the page. It just wasn't what I imagined. I wasn't having fun, and I was running out of money. So just 5 months after quitting my job, I gave up on my dream and I got another 9 to 5. But this time, it felt far worse. The instant, and I mean the instant I stepped into that HR office and I started filling out all those dreadful, soul-sucking forms, I knew this was the last time I would ever work for someone else again. So I invested a big chunk of each paycheck into learning from all the OG online business gurus. People like Brendan Burchard, Jeff Walker, Eben Pagan. I drove hundreds of miles to their in-person events. And at one of those events, I bumped into my client, Michelle Schudnell. She invited me to speak on web design at her event a couple months later and asked me what I would sell. I looked at her blankly. Sell? I couldn't admit that I had nothing to sell. So the first words out of my mouth were, how about my Build Your Site, Launch Your Business program? Perfect, she said, done. But the truth was, it was far from done. And I had no idea how the heck I was gonna pull this off. My inner voice was screaming, what did you just do? I had never spoken on stage before. So needless to say, I didn't have a talk. I'd never created a program before. I didn't have an audience. I didn't have an email list. And my experience with online business was limited to just a handful of web design clients. Ready or not, here I come. I quickly discovered that the only way to get ready for something is to actually do it. Enter my first group coaching program, Build Your Site, Launch Your Business. Clearly, I didn't know anything about choosing a compelling name or designing a compelling logo. Yup, I made this bad boy myself. But I did have a laptop, an internet connection, and a dream to help people with my skills and expertise, which I discovered are the only 3 things you need to get started. Not to mention that looming date on the calendar to get it all done. I wished it were a year later because less than 3 months didn't feel like a whole lot of time to figure everything out. But I had made the leap, and the only option was to fly. The weeks flew by until it was time to get in the car and drive those 5 long hours from LA to San Francisco, a trip I had made so many times before. I crashed at a friend's house to save money and made my way to the venue. The moment had finally arrived. I sat in the back of the room, just cramming my notes until the last possible minute. Let's welcome my good friend, Marisa Murgatroyd, to the stage. I looked out at the 75 people in the audience, and they looked back. No, they stared back at me. I started talking to the soundtrack in my head. I can't do this. I can do this. I can't do this. I can do this. I can't do this. A few people nodded. Wait, maybe I can do this. A few more nods. Maybe they're even liking me? I managed to get to the end and fumble through my offer. 3 people bought. Not what I was hoping for, but at least I made some sales. A week later, Michelle decided to give me one more chance and hosted me on a webinar to her audience, which attracted another 100 people. This was long before Zoom, and I remember how strange it was speaking into the abyss, wondering if people were really there and really listening because you couldn't see anyone. But I got through it, and I made 4 more sales, bringing me to 7. But I really wanted 8. So I remember calling and messaging a bunch of people I had met on the event circuit until I got that last sale. Almost 200 no's and 8 yeses. But I did it. I designed and launched my first program, and I was now a course creator. You really never know what will happen when you take life-changing action. Flash forward to today, and those 8 students grew into over 12,000 students. And Michelle Schubnell still promotes my courses to this day. It still amazes me that I've been able to inspire my students to take over 500,000 hours of action. And it all started from me saying yes long before I was actually ready. And yes, failing all along the way. Because that path from 8 students to 12,000, it definitely wasn't easy, and it definitely didn't happen overnight. I hope these failure stories show you how humble and even embarrassing beginnings can lead to extraordinary results. I hope this video and my story has inspired you to take action. If it did, I'd love to know your biggest takeaway from this video, or even a glimpse at your first or next steps in your business. I truly believe that now is the time to start or grow your business. This is your opportunity to learn from my failures and start winning the game of business. Because one of the biggest things I've learned over the last 12 plus years, helping people start and grow their businesses, is to just go for it. There's never gonna be a perfect time, and you will make mistakes. But the key to real, long-lasting success is taking consistent action, experimenting, failing, and iterating again and again and again. And if you want to keep watching more videos like this one, I recommend my video on the most powerful mindset of success and freedom to fail. Why falling on your face can be your greatest gift. Now go out there and live your message.